You ever sit there, staring at the screen, wondering how we went from this guy's no good to me dead to let me ride a ranker like it's a bantha-sized pony ride? Yeah, same. The galaxy gave us a bounty hunter, so feared that Vader had to tell him to chill. And somehow, we ended up with a guy giving TED Talks on respect, in the middle of a Tatooine alleyway. Boba Fett used to be a symbol of silent danger. Now he's a community organizer with a jetpack and a dream. It's like someone took the armor, polished off the mystery, and replaced the rocket launcher with a set of house rules. No killing, no spice, no stepping on the rugs without taking your boots off. Meanwhile, the only guy in the galaxy who actually earned that legend, the one who was the blueprint for an entire army, got his head chopped off in the second act and was never seen again. I mean, we gave more screen time to Fennec Shan's nutritional habits than we ever gave to Jango Fett's backstory. And let's talk about that backstory. Jango wasn't just a cool suit and a blaster. He was the catalyst for a galactic war, the template for every clone, and somehow still managed to raise a kid in the middle of all that chaos. That's not just parenting, that's multitasking with a kill count. You think Mando had it rough with Grogu? Jango was doing bath time while dodging Jedi and negotiating with Sith Lords. But instead of exploring that, Disney gave us 7 episodes of Boba napping in a fish tank and solving crime with the Power Rangers on Vespers. It's almost impressive how quickly they managed to deflate decades of mystique, like watching someone turn Batman into the mayor of Gotham and thinking that's character development. It's not. It's narrative malpractice wrapped in bantha leather. I'm not mad because they changed the character. I'm mad because they changed the wrong one. Jango had the grit, the moral ambiguity, the raw edge that Star Wars is always chasing but rarely commits to. He wasn't a hero, he wasn't a villain, he was a survivor with a code and a contract. And that's what makes a compelling story. Not another redemption arc with a side of diplomacy. In this video, we're diving deep into why a Jango Fett series could have been everything Boba's wasn't. Gritty, grounded, emotionally rich, and actually worth watching. We'll look at the story they ignored, the potential they buried, and the Fett who should have had the spotlight all along. Because sometimes, the legend isn't the one who survives. It's the one who was never given a chance to be heard. What if the Fett we were meant to follow was never Boba in the first place? What if all this time, the real story lived in Jango, the man who didn't just wear the armor, but forged the legacy? Before Boba was a mysterious bounty hunter with a grudge and a jetpack, Jango was the prototype, the one the galaxy literally cloned to make an army. And yet we barely scratched the surface of who he was, what he believed, or how he ended up the Republic's most controversial contractor. Imagine a series that starts with Jango in his prime, navigating the criminal underworld with zero attachments and a growing reputation that both opened doors and got him hunted. Picture the Camino deal, not as a quick exposition dump, but a tense, multi-episode negotiation involving separatist spies, Republic agents, and bounty hunters trying to cash in on his DNA. We could have seen a man trying to control his future by selling it, bargaining his legacy in a way Boba never really could. There's a magnetic mystery to Jango, because we never saw him crack. He wasn't trying to rule Tatooine or sit on a throne made of bones and poor decisions. He was surviving, adapting, and shaping the future of the galaxy in secret. What kind of man chooses to be the template for millions, and then raises just one of them as his son? Why him? Why now? Why that deal? These are the questions that keep you up at night, and should have been the backbone of a show that had real depth. Plus, it's not like there's a shortage of source material. Legends gave us stories of Jango being trained by the Mandalorians, hunted by Jedi, betrayed by criminals, and still coming out on top with nothing but grit and a blaster. A show like that practically writes itself. Just add a morally grey mission every episode, and the occasional duel with a Jedi who's not afraid to bend the rules. We could have had something that felt like Andor meets the Mandalorian, but sharper and less pleasing. Let's be honest, what we got with the Book of Boba Fett felt like a baton switch with a side of beige. We tuned in expecting a ruthless bounty hunter reclaiming his empire with cold efficiency. And instead we got a guy who couldn't walk across Mos Espa without asking a teenage biker gang for directions. Boba Fett was supposed to be the man with no name in a galaxy full of chatter, and suddenly he couldn't stop monologuing about respect. What makes it worse is how much potential was right there, just waiting to be used. Temuera Morrison is incredible, but the show gave him nothing to do except stand around in a bathrobe, making vague plans that never actually worked. He had more presence in 2 minutes of Attack of the Clones than he did across an entire season of his own show, and meanwhile, the best scenes involved characters who weren't even Boba, like Mando showing up and stealing the whole episode without trying. There's something quietly heartbreaking about what they did to Boba Fett's legacy. For decades, he was a symbol of mystery, of menace, of that dangerous cool you couldn't explain, but absolutely respected. Kids wore his helmet because they didn't need to know his backstory, he was the backstory. And then the show decided to give us all the answers to questions we never asked, and somehow it made him feel smaller. What's tragic is that Jango's story could have been the emotional counterpoint, the foundation that gave Boba weight without taking away the myth. Jango was a father, a warrior, a killer, and a clone in his own right. He chose legacy over life, and died protecting it. That's Shakespeare-level tragedy, hidden inside a few short scenes, and it deserved a spotlight, not a passing mention. We saw Jango's end before we saw his beginning. We saw him die in front of his son without ever really knowing who he was or what he believed. That one moment, where Boba holds his helmet like a lost relic, was more powerful than anything in his own series. That's the emotional weight the show should have explored, not speederbike turf wars with Power Rangers extras. A Jango show could have explored the cost of cloning yourself for war, the quiet horror of being the model for a galactic conflict, and the pain of raising a child who'll carry your face but never your memories. That's heavy, that's dark, and that's exactly what Star Wars needs when it wants to be meaningful. Instead, we got a story afraid to say anything. Let's just take a second to appreciate what Jango Fett actually accomplished. He wasn't Force-sensitive, wasn't backed by a royal family, wasn't born into a chosen bloodline. He was just a guy in armor who built a reputation so massive, the Republic decided to clone him into a literal army. That's not just impressive, that's legendary. This is a guy who fought Jedi toe-to-toe, outsmarted Obi-Wan Kenobi, and made Kamino his personal fortress. When you can go punch for punch with a Jedi Knight, fly through asteroid fields while being hunted, and still stop for a casual conversation with your clone son, you're not just skilled, you're operating on a completely different level. Jango wasn't a villain, he was a professional. He didn't kill for fun, he killed for contracts. And even then, he had a code. You could sense it in every move he made, every calculated decision. There was something incredibly grounded about him, even as he stood next to Sith Lords and bounty hunters with flamethrowers. He belonged in every scene because he earned his presence, and he made an entire army possible. The clones were more than soldiers, they were his legacy. His face repeated across 1,000 battlefields. Every clone trooper's voice was his. Every death in that war echoed back to his choice. That's not just cool lore, that's deep, galaxy-shaping impact, and it's wild that we never got to see him grapple with it. Here's the thing, there's still time to do it, right? Star Wars has always been about redemption, about second chances, about finding meaning even after everything's been lost. And if they really wanted to fix the mess they made with the Fett legacy, they'd go back to the beginning. Not another Boba spin-off, not another cameo fest with lightsabers and lore dumps, just a clean, focused, brutal Jango Fett story. Imagine a series that shows us his rise from orphan to Mandalorian warrior, his betrayal by the Death Watch, his battles on Galadron. You could weave in flashbacks, Clone Wars, cameos, bounty missions, and a look at how he raised Boba between the jobs. Give us that cold edge, again the unflinching stare, the silent confidence, the calculated violence. You could even tie it thematically to what came after. A story that shows how Jango became the man the galaxy would one day replicate, while planting seeds of doubt in his own legacy. The contrast between Jango's ruthless professionalism and Boba's meandering path could say everything about how we carry the weight of those who came before us. There's a hunger for this kind of storytelling, now darker, tighter, character-driven arcs that treat the audience with respect. Look at Andor, people loved it, not because it had Jedi or fan service, but because it was raw and real and personal. A Jango show could absolutely hit that same level, if not surpass it, because the foundation is already solid. Hope doesn't come from ignoring the past, it comes from confronting it. And the best way to redeem the Fett legacy isn't by rewriting Boba's future. It's by finally giving Jango his due. Maybe the saddest part of all this is realizing how much we lost by telling the wrong story first. The Book of Boba Fett wasn't just a misfire, it was a monument to missed opportunity. It took a character defined by silence and made him talk too much. It took a legacy built on fear and turned it into local politics with gangland diplomacy. Jango, on the other hand, was a story left untouched. He had mystery, power, stakes. His actions literally shaped an entire war and defined a generation of troopers. But because he died in a movie made 20 years ago, we wrote him off as a footnote, instead of realizing he was the prologue we never got to read. And that's the tragedy of Star Wars. Lately it forgets that legacy isn't just about what comes next. It's about where it all began. You can't understand Boba without Jango, just like you can't understand Vader without Anakin. But while Vader got an entire prequel trilogy, Jango got a decapitation and a 6-second funeral. What we needed was a story about a man who chose to shape the galaxy with nothing but skill and strategy. A man who walked into the halls of power and sold them a future with his own DNA. That's not just good television, that's operatic, mythic, and entirely Star Wars. Thank you for watching the whole video. I make videos because of my love for Star Wars and Marvel. I've been asked countless times how I get my subtitles, and I generate them automatically with a tool I built. That same tool can be used here on my website. It's completely free and doesn't require signing up. My website contains the subtitle generator that is perfect for any video, blogging post, where you can sign up with your email and receive notifications for when I post, and also my 3 channels. Critical Analysis Hub focuses on Star Wars and Marvel movies. Critical Analysis Hub Plus looks at Star Wars and Marvel shows. And Critical Analysis Hub XP centers on video games, like The Last of Us series, Jedi Survivor, and GTA 5. Thank you for being a fan.